A galaxy had never been silent, not truly. But in the sectors near the edge of known space, a different kind of quiet had settled. A quiet that carried fear. The human fleet drifted through the void, massive carriers and sleek fighter ships moving in perfect formation. On the bridge of the SSV Defiance, Commander Lyra stood tall, her eyes scanning the endless stretch of stars. Her hands rested lightly on the console, though every nerve in her body was alert, ready to react. Somewhere far ahead, the savage aces were coming. No one knew exactly how many there were. Every report brought horror. Fleets obliterated in minutes, worlds left in flames, alien ships faster, deadlier, more coordinated than anything humanity had ever faced. These weren't ordinary enemies, they were perfect predators, and the galaxy feared them. But humans were stubborn. Humans had always fought when survival seemed impossible. And Lyra, like everyone aboard the Defiance, believed they would fight now too. Admiral Corvin sat at his station, eyes narrow, fingers tapping lightly against his chair's arm. He had seen countless fleets fall in his career, yet this was different. There was something about the human resolve, the way these pilots refused to show panic even when confronted with annihilation, that no alien had ever accounted for. "We can't underestimate them," he muttered, mostly to himself. In the observation deck, Lyra's gaze followed the distant light of a colony under attack. The alarms had been screaming for the last hour, a chorus of panic echoing through the human fleet. Civilians were evacuating as fast as possible, but evacuation alone could not stop the savage strike of the alien jets. Lyra clenched her jaw. "We may be outnumbered. We may be outgunned, but we will not bow." The Defiance shuddered lightly as it adjusted its position, shielding smaller ships behind its massive frame. Lyra's voice rang out, calm but firm, through every channel. "All carriers, open your hangars. Launch every available fighter. Humanity does not retreat. Humanity does not surrender." Her words were simple, but each syllable carried the weight of determination that had defined human history for centuries. Every officer and pilot aboard felt it. A surge of courage, the kind that refused to yield even when death waited at the edge of the stars. Young pilots like Jace, barely 20, listened to the command through his earpiece, heart pounding like a drum. He was inexperienced, yes, but he was ready. His hands shook slightly as he ran final checks on his fighter. But the trembling was not from fear. It was from the thrill of purpose. Humans were not perfect soldiers, but they were willing to risk everything to protect each other, to protect their homes, to protect the spark of life that burned so brightly in the darkness of space. Outside the fleet, faint streaks of alien light appeared, first scouts, then larger groups moving faster than thought possible. They were elegant and terrifying, like living shadows with engines. Their silhouettes were unlike anything human engineers had ever seen. No matter how advanced humanity had become, these creatures seemed to defy every expectation. Yet humans had a way of adapting. The fleet did not panic. Carriers opened, releasing jets in precise patterns, moving as a coordinated wave of steel and courage. Lyra felt a knot tighten in her chest as she watched the approaching swarm. This was the moment every human aboard had trained for. Some of them had joined the fleet knowing they might never return. Some had left families behind on distant colonies, knowing they might be the last defense. And now everything depended on them, not just their skill but their heart. Humans had something no algorithm could predict, the refusal to give in. Corvin's hands hovered over the tactical console. "The aces are fast, but they're arrogant," he muttered. "They underestimate human cunning. They assume fear. They assume surrender. They assume weakness. They are wrong." His voice was quiet, but his words carried across the fleet, a subtle reminder of what humans were capable of. The first report of destruction came moments later. One human fighter, a sleek craft piloted by a young woman named Mara, had intercepted an ace near a mining station. The station's alarms blared as the alien jet fired, but Mara dodged and countered with precision. She was alone, surrounded, But she fought like a storm, refusing to retreat until she had bought time for evacuation ships to leave safely. Her actions were small, but in the human fleet every small victory mattered. As Lyra watched Mara's fight unfold on the monitors, she felt a surge of pride and a pang of worry. The humans were outnumbered, yes. Outgunned, yes. But they were not outhearted. And that, she knew, could change everything. Corvin's voice broke her thoughts. Admirals across the galaxy are watching this. They believe humanity is weak. Let them watch. Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. Humanity had no choice but to fight. But fight they would with everything they had, with every ounce of strength, cunning, and courage in their souls. The quiet of space seemed to thrum with anticipation. The savage aces were coming fast and deadly, but humanity was ready. Not perfect, not guaranteed, but iron-willed. And that was enough to make even the galaxy tremble. The silence of space shattered like glass. Bright streaks of alien jets tore across the void, moving faster than anything the human fleet had encountered before. Their shapes were sharp, almost predatory, and their weapons glowed with an eerie green light that seemed to burn through the darkness. The savage aces had arrived. On the SSV Defiance, alarms screamed, red lights flashing across the bridge. Commander Lyra's calm voice cut through the chaos. All fighters launch immediately. Protect the carriers. No one retreats. Her words were firm, commanding, but behind them lay the tension every human felt deep in their bones. Fear was present, it always was, but it was controlled, tempered by training, and hardened by determination. Young Jace gripped his controls, heart hammering. This was it, his first real battle. The simulator exercises, the endless drills. None of it had prepared him for the sight of dozens of alien jets diving toward human carriers like swarms of deadly hornets. The fleet seemed fragile, yet in its vulnerability it held a strange strength. The carriers, massive and armored, were shields, engines, and hope all in one, and humanity would defend them at any cost. The first wave of the savage aces struck with merciless precision. One of Jace's wingmen, a veteran pilot named Rena, barely dodged a plasma blast that carved a streak through space.
They're fast!
Too fast, she shouted over the comms. They don't see our strategy yet, Lyra responded. Hold formation. Draw them into the trap. Humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and slower. Yet their fighters twisted, weaved, and dodged in patterns that the aliens could not predict. The humans did not have superior technology in every way, but they had heart, intuition, and teamwork, things that no alien program or instinct could anticipate. Jace's fighter spiraled through fire and energy beams, narrowly avoiding a collision with a disintegrating ship. He felt fear prick at his mind, sharp and biting, but he also felt pride. He was part of something greater than himself. Every maneuver he made, every dive, every calculated risk, contributed to the fleet's survival. Humans were not perfect. They were messy. They were unpredictable, and in this moment that unpredictability became their greatest weapon. The first casualties came swiftly. One carrier took a direct hit, fire erupting along its hull. Crews scrambled, fighting to contain damage, launching escape pods for those trapped. Lyra's voice was steady, almost soothing amid the chaos. We will not lose more than necessary. Protect each other. Fight with every ounce of strength you have. Every human pilot understood the weight of her words. Mara, a fighter ace known for her daring maneuvers, dove straight into the path of a savage ace targeting a damaged carrier. Her jet spun around the alien's weapons, releasing a volley of missiles that shattered the attacker. She saved dozens of lives in a single move, yet her fighter took damage, smoking but still flying. She did not celebrate. In this battle, there was no time for celebration. Only survival, only fighting, only determination. The humans began to see a pattern. The savage aces were strong, but they were arrogant. They attacked in straight lines, expecting humans to break. Instead, humans twisted, dodged, and struck in unexpected ways. Jace found himself facing two aces at once. His heart pounded, adrenaline surged, but he remembered Lyra's words, iron-willed. Protect the carriers. He fired carefully, his missiles finding gaps in the enemy formation. One ace exploded in a brilliant flash. The other retreated, confused and cautious for the first time. Admiral Corvin watched the battle unfold on the bridge, his hands tight on the console. Even he had to admit it. Humans were performing miracles. Their losses were real, painful and deep, but their resistance was unyielding. Each small victory, each clever maneuver, built into a larger story. Humanity would not yield. The battle raged for hours, though it felt like minutes to those inside the storm of lasers and explosions. Pilots screamed over the comms, giving each other coordinates, warnings, encouragement. Fear mixed with adrenaline, loss with hope, and the humans discovered something profound in the process. They were stronger together than they had ever imagined. Even the savage aces began to hesitate. They were predators used to swift victory. They were used to being the apex. And yet these humans, slower, smaller, and seemingly fragile, refused to fall. They fought with ingenuity, courage, and unbreakable resolve. Every time an alien jet dove on a carrier, a human fighter was there to meet it, to buy time, to defend. Every maneuver was personal, every sacrifice meaningful. By the time the first wave ended, both fleets were battered. Humans had lost ships, yes, but the carriers were intact, the pilots alive, and the aliens confused. Humanity had survived the first clash. It was only the beginning, but it was proof. Against overwhelming odds, humans would fight. Humans would endure, and humans would not surrender. Jace floated in space, adrenaline still racing, watching distant explosions bloom against the black void. Around him, pilots who had just moments ago been strangers were now comrades, bound by courage and shared survival. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "We can do this. We have to do this. We will do this." Commander Lyra watched him and thousands like him across the fleet. The galaxy could doubt humanity, fear humanity, even laugh at their inferior technology. But it would never take away what she saw now: the iron will of humans, the savage courage in ordinary hearts, and the unbreakable bond that made them something the savage aces could never predict. And as the stars stretched endlessly above, one truth became clear: the first clash was over. Humans had survived, and that survival would become the spark for everything to come. The smoke of destroyed fighters lingered in the void, glittering faintly against distant stars like fallen fireflies. The human fleet had survived the first wave of the savage aces, but the battle was far from over. Carriers hummed with activity, crews racing to repair damage, check weapons, and prepare for the next strike. Every human knew the aliens would not give them a moment's rest. Commander Lyra walked the bridge of the SSV Defiance, her boots echoing softly against metal floors. She watched the young pilots return from their sorties, some with victories, some with scars, all carrying exhaustion and determination in equal measure. Her eyes fell on Jace, still trembling from adrenaline but alive. Alive because of his courage, because of his instincts, because of the bond between him and every other human pilot around him. "Status report," Lyra called, her voice steady. "Most fighters operational, some carriers damaged, but nothing critical," came the reply. "The aces are regrouping, scanning for weaknesses." Lyra's lips pressed together. She knew the aliens were fast learners. Every human fighter they had faced, every maneuver they had survived, had been recorded and calculated. The next wave would be smarter, more aggressive, but humanity had one advantage the aces could not calculate: unpredictability born from courage and willpower. Corvin's voice came through the intercom, steady and grim. "Prepare for the second wave. I want full offensive readiness. We will not just survive this, we will make them hesitate." The hangars opened fully this time. Jets poured out like rivers of steel, their engines screaming into the vacuum, ready to face the next storm. Lyra's fleet had learned from the first clash: scatter in unpredictable formations, attack in small coordinated groups, protect each carrier at all costs. Every human fighter had a role, and every human heart carried the same unspoken command: Do not fail. Do not retreat. The savage aces appeared again, faster, more aggressive. Their numbers seemed endless, their movements precise, like hunters circling a cornered prey. Human fighters dove into the fray with the roar of engines and the determination of a people who refused to be broken. Jace found himself in the middle of a three-way fight. One ace dove from above, another from below, and a third locked onto a carrier behind him. He remembered the lessons from Lyra and his wingmen: predict, improvise, survive. His fingers flew over controls, twisting, spinning, diving, and firing. One by one, the aces faltered under human ingenuity. One jet crashed into an asteroid. Another was sent spinning into a cloud of debris, and the last fled, surprised by the relentless tactics. Everywhere the story was the same. Humans were faster in thought, sharper in improvisation, braver in heart. Mara led a squadron in a daring flanking maneuver, cutting off a group of aces trying to encircle a carrier. They fought like a storm, moving unpredictably, striking where no enemy expected. Every strike, every sacrifice, every daring move was proof of what humanity could do when they refused to surrender. Even Admiral Corvin, watching from the bridge, could feel the tide turning. The aliens were not used to resistance this fierce. Their confidence wavered as they realized their perfect coordination was meeting something unyielding, uncalculable, and relentless. Humanity's unpredictability was its greatest weapon. On the bridge, Lyra spoke softly to herself, almost a whisper, almost a prayer. "We can do this. We will do this." She looked at the young pilots returning from sorties, their faces streaked with sweat and soot, their eyes alive with courage. They were humans, fragile yet ferocious, ordinary yet extraordinary. And they were making the impossible possible. The battle raged on for hours. The void around the fleet was a canvas of light and fire. Fighters weaved between missiles, dodged laser fire, and struck with precision. Carriers remained intact, battered but functional, holding the fleet together like the hearts of living machines. Each victory, no matter how small, strengthened the resolve of every human aboard. In the chaos, human stories emerged like stars in darkness. Jace saw a young pilot trapped in debris, surrounded by aces. Without thinking, he dove, firing missiles and drawing enemy fire, saving her just in time. Mara, her fighter barely holding together, shielded a damaged carrier with daring maneuvers that seemed impossible. Lyra watched these acts, her chest swelling with pride and fear in equal measure. Every life mattered, every action mattered, every human mattered. And slowly, incredibly, the savage aces began to retreat, confused and hesitant. They had expected humans to crumble under fire, to scatter and surrender. Instead, they had found themselves facing something unplanned, something raw, something terrifying. Iron-willed humans who refused to die without a fight. By the time the second wave ended, humanity had won a small but critical victory. The fleet had suffered losses, but their carriers were intact, their pilots alive, and their courage unshaken. Even the aliens had learned something about humans that no calculation could predict. Humans fought with heart, with spirit, with unbreakable resolve. Jace floated in the void, engines cooling, breathing ragged but victorious. Around him, pilots cheered, radioing stories of daring maneuvers, heroic saves, and enemy jets destroyed. For the first time, the humans realized that they were not just surviving. They were becoming something the galaxy had never expected. They were a force to be reckoned with. Lyra looked at the stars beyond the fleet. The savage aces were formidable, but humanity had proven something vital. Against all odds, against impossible enemies, they could fight back. And in that moment, every human knew one truth. The tide had turned. Corvin's voice broke the quiet celebration. "Remember this moment," he said firmly. "This is the proof that humans do not yield, not ever. The galaxy will remember today." And somewhere deep in the fleet, Jace whispered to himself, a grin breaking through exhaustion. "We're not just alive, we're unstoppable." The human fleet had survived the first true test. The savage aces had underestimated them, and humanity, iron-willed and relentless, was just getting started. The void of space glowed with fire and metal fragments as the battle continued. Every human fighter was now a lifeline, every carrier a sanctuary, and every decision a matter of life and death. Commander Lyra stood on the bridge of the SSV Defiance, her eyes scanning the swirling chaos. Her heart beat steadily, though the tension pressed against it like a vice. The savage aces had returned, more ruthless, more relentless, determined to crush the human fleet once and for all. "Incoming wave, front and left," shouted a communications officer. Red blips streaked across the tactical map. The aliens were closing in, their numbers greater than the humans had seen before. Yet the fleet did not panic. Every human knew the stakes. Every human knew the price of hesitation. And every human knew one truth: they would fight no matter what. Jace gripped his controls tightly, his knuckles white. His fighter spun and twisted through the first wave, dodging bursts of green energy that could melt metal instantly. Behind him, a carrier shuddered from an attack, alarms blaring. He could not afford to think of fear. He could only act, only protect, only survive. Ahead, a massive ace swooped down, targeting the same carrier as Jace. Its engines glowed like the eye of a predator. Jace's mind raced. He had trained for combat, yes, but nothing had prepared him for the fury of these creatures. With a deep breath, he dove, twisting his fighter in impossible angles, and fired. The ace swerved violently, missing its strike by inches. Jace's heart raced. One move, one moment, and the carrier lives, but the battle was personal too. Mara, her fighter damaged from the previous wave, found herself separated from her squadron. An ace locked onto her, fast and precise. She dodged, spiraling in the void, but the alien was relentless. Memories of her homeworld flashed through her mind. Family, friends, dreams she could not afford to lose. With grit and skill, she executed a daring maneuver, luring the ace into the path of Jace's missiles. The alien disintegrated in a brilliant flash, leaving Mara panting, alive and grateful. Even the veterans were not spared the intensity of this clash. Corvin watched from the bridge, his jaw tight. Reports came in of carriers sustaining heavy damage, some barely holding together. Human lives hung in the balance, yet the pilots did not falter. They improvised, adapted, and risked themselves for each other. Every act of bravery was a spark in the darkness. Every life saved was a testament to the human will. And then came the hardest moments. One of the smaller carriers, the SSV Valor, took a direct hit. Explosions ripped through the hull. Smoke and fire poured from its engines. The crew remained inside, determined to buy time for the rest of the fleet. Lyra's stomach sank. She could not order them to retreat. They had made their choice. She could only hope their sacrifice was not in vain. Jace's comm crackled. "We can't save them all," he shouted, voice trembling. Lyra's reply was firm but soft with grief. "No, but we can make their sacrifice count. Every life they protect is a life we keep fighting for. Focus on the rest. Fight for them." The humans surged forward with renewed purpose. Every pilot felt it. The lives lost were not in vain. The wounded and brave gave the fleet the chance to survive, to strike back, to fight another day. It was not just a battle of ships. It was a battle of hearts. Every human fighter became a guardian, every maneuver a statement. We will not surrender. We will not fail. Amid the chaos, small stories of courage emerged. A young pilot rescued a comrade trapped in a damaged fighter, diving into enemy fire to pull them free. Another pilot, his engines nearly destroyed, shielded a carrier with a final desperate maneuver. Each act, each choice strengthened the human fleet's resolve. It was not technology that carried them forward. It was the heart, the courage, and the unbreakable bonds between them. The savage aces, once confident predators, began to falter. They had expected humans to panic, to scatter, to surrender under pressure. Instead, they found themselves facing fighters who adapted instantly, who sacrificed freely, who struck unpredictably and fought with ferocious determination. Their perfect algorithms had not prepared them for humans who improvised from fear and hope alike, turning desperation into strength. Hours passed in a blur of fire, smoke, and courage. Jace floated above the debris of destroyed aces, his fighter battered but alive. Mara returned, exhausted but triumphant, her squadron rallying around her. Lyra watched, heart heavy with grief for those lost but swelling with pride for those who endured. Humanity was not invincible, but they were unstoppable in spirit. Corvin spoke quietly to Lyra over the comms. "The galaxy has underestimated us. They will no longer do so, not after this." Lyra nodded, staring at the stars beyond the fleet. Every human who had fought today, every life risked, every victory claimed, had proven one undeniable truth. Humans fought not just with weapons or strategy, but with heart. They fought for each other, for their homes, for the spark of life that refused to be snuffed out by alien fire. And somewhere, in the endless dark, Jace whispered to himself, exhausted but determined, "We will survive. We must survive. We fight for them. For everyone." The first personal battles had been fought. Some had been won, some lost. But humanity's courage had grown stronger with each struggle, every sacrifice, every act of defiance. The savage aces had met humans in combat, and for the first time they realized they had underestimated the fire burning in human hearts. The fleet regrouped, battered but alive. Carriers hummed with energy, fighters readied for the next strike, and Commander Lyra allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. Humanity had survived, but the war was far from over. Yet one truth had never been clearer. The human spirit, iron-willed and savage in courage, would not be broken. Not now, not ever. The human fleet moved like a living organism through the dark expanse of space, battered but unbroken. Fires burned on some carriers, smoke drifting into the void, while human fighters streaked through the battlefield, weaving between missiles and flashes of alien energy. Commander Lyra stood on the bridge of the SSV Defiance, her gaze steady but her heart heavy. Every loss, every scream over the comms weighed on her. Yet she knew something vital. Humanity's strength was not in numbers or firepower. It was in courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable will. The SSV Valor had taken a direct hit during the last wave. Its hull groaned under the stress, alarms blaring through the corridors. Inside, the crew worked feverishly to stabilize the ship, knowing that every second they held the aces at bay meant survival for the rest of the fleet. Lyra watched the monitors, her stomach twisting. "They're holding, but barely," she whispered. Jace gripped the controls of his fighter, adrenaline still coursing through him. He could see the Valor struggling, smoke billowing from its engines. His heart clenched. "We have to protect them. We can't lose them." With a deep breath, he dove toward the swarm of savage aces surrounding the carrier, missiles blazing, engines screaming. One by one, he intercepted the enemy jets, forcing them back, giving the Valor precious moments to regain balance. Mara, her fighter damaged but still functional, joined him. Together, they danced through enemy fire, pushing back the predators that had dared to corner the carrier. Each maneuver was a risk, each shot a statement of defiance. The humans were outnumbered, yes, but their resolve had become a weapon sharper than any alien technology. And then came the hardest moments. One of the Valor's hangar bays was hit directly. Explosions ripped through the deck, sending debris and smoke into space. Pilots trapped inside scrambled to escape, some injured, some too late. Jace's eyes widened as he saw a wingman engulfed in flames, drifting helplessly. Without hesitation, he veered toward him, risking his own life. He pulled the pilot into formation, guiding him back to safety. Over the comms, a voice trembled. We can't hold them forever." "No," Lyra admitted, voice firm, tinged with grief. "But we can make every second count. Fight for them. Fight for everyone. Fight for humanity." The fleet surged forward with renewed determination. Pilots felt it. The sacrifices of those aboard the Valor were not in vain. Every life they protected became a spark of courage for the rest of the human fighters. Every maneuver, every desperate dive, every daring shot carried meaning beyond survival. It was a testament to human willpower. Even the savage aces began to hesitate. They had expected the humans to crumble under the pressure, to scatter like prey caught in a storm. Instead, they encountered pilots who improvised instantly, who shielded one another, who fought with heart and unbreakable determination. The aliens' confidence faltered. Their perfect precision could not match human unpredictability, bravery, and the fierce desire to protect one another. Jace found himself in another desperate engagement. Two aces had flanked a damaged carrier, their weapons locking on with deadly precision. He dove between them, twisting, spiraling, and firing. One ace exploded, the other was forced to retreat. Around him, human pilots continued to fight with the same ferocity, driven by the sacrifices of those who had held the valor together. Every life risked, every fighter lost, became a reason to fight harder, not to surrender. Mara's squadron executed a daring maneuver to protect a heavily damaged carrier. They drew enemy fire onto themselves, taking hits that would have destroyed lesser pilots, all to ensure the ship survived. In that moment, every pilot knew bravery was not measured by survival, but by the willingness to risk everything for others. Corvin, watching from the Defiance, felt the weight of the battle pressing against him. Reports of damaged ships, injured pilots, and fallen comrades filled the screens. Yet, amidst the loss, he also saw victory. The humans had held the fleet together, driven back enemy waves, and protected their carriers. Their sacrifice had changed the course of the battle. He allowed himself a brief nod, silently acknowledging the courage of every human who had risked everything. As the fleet regrouped, the valor drifted heavily but remained intact, a testament to human endurance and sacrifice. Pilots and crews who had survived the assault repaired systems, aided the wounded, and prepared for the next strike. Lyra's eyes lingered on the screens showing the battered but unbowed fleet. Humanity had endured loss, yes. They had mourned, yes. But they had also fought with courage, creativity, and unbreakable will. And somewhere in the void, Jace whispered to himself, exhaustion and adrenaline mingling. We're not just surviving. We're fighting for something bigger. For everyone who can't fight for themselves. For those who believe in us. For humanity. The sacrifices of the Valor and other ships had not been in vain. They had bought time, protected lives, and inspired every human fighter in the fleet. They had proven that even against overwhelming odds, humans could endure, adapt, and fight with courage that no algorithm, no alien technology, could predict. Lyra allowed herself a moment to breathe, a fleeting second to feel pride and sorrow in equal measure. Humanity had survived the sacrifices. Humanity had endured the storm. And humanity was ready for whatever came next. The galaxy may have doubted them, may have expected them to fall, may have counted them out. But humanity had proved one undeniable truth. They fought with heart, with courage, and with a will stronger than any weapon. Sacrifices had been made. Lives had been risked. Yet through it all, the human spirit had burned brighter than the fires of any destroyed ship. And as the stars stretched endlessly above, Commander Lyra whispered softly, almost to herself, "We are iron-willed. We are savage in courage, and we will never be broken." The stars burned cold above the human fleet, but the fires of determination inside every pilot and crew member blazed hotter than any engine. Hours of battle had left them exhausted, battered, and grieving for those who had been lost. Yet even in this fatigue, humanity refused to surrender. Every strike, every maneuver, every heartbeat carried one message. They would not bow. Commander Lyra stood on the bridge of the SSV Defiance, scanning the tactical map with sharp eyes. The Savage Aces had regrouped once again, but there was a hesitation in their approach, a recognition that the humans were not ordinary prey. The fleet's carriers were intact, their fighters operational, and their spirit unbroken. Humanity was no longer merely surviving. They were fighting with purpose, precision, and ferocity that the galaxy had never seen. Jace floated in his fighter, engines humming steadily as he prepared for another sortie. His heart still raced from the previous waves of combat, but he felt something new: confidence. He had learned the enemy's patterns, observed their arrogance, and discovered the power of human ingenuity. He was no longer just a pilot. He was part of a force that refused to yield, a wave of courage that even the savage aces could not predict. "Form up on me," Lyra's voice echoed over the comms. "This is it. We strike together and we strike hard. Protect the carriers at all costs, and let every alien jet know we will not be stopped." The fleet surged forward. Carriers opened their hangars wide, releasing every available fighter in a display of power and defiance. Humanity's jets poured into the void like a storm, twisting and diving in coordinated patterns that confounded the alien predators. The savage aces attacked, but they were met with a wall of ingenuity, courage, and relentless determination. Mara led a squadron in a daring flanking maneuver, cutting off a group of aces attempting to encircle a human carrier. Each pilot moved with precision, covering one another, anticipating enemy movements, and striking with deadly accuracy. Their actions were small victories, yet together they formed a wave that began to push the savage aces back. Jace found himself in the thick of the battle once more, this time facing 3 enemy jets at once. His mind raced, calculating, reacting, improvising. He spiraled and dove, firing missiles that found their marks, forcing the enemies into retreat. Around him, human fighters danced through fire and explosions, risking themselves to protect the fleet, to protect each other, and to protect the fragile hope of survival. Admiral Corvin watched from the Defiance, voice tight with emotion. "The galaxy will remember this," he said quietly. "They underestimated humanity. They assumed fear. They assumed surrender. They were wrong. Even the savage aces, creatures bred for efficiency and destruction, faltered under the unyielding human assault. Their formations broke, their strikes became scattered, and confusion spread through their ranks. They had faced many enemies, but none like this. None that fought with the unpredictable courage and heart of humanity. On the Valor, now stabilized but still bearing scars from earlier attacks, crews worked tirelessly to repair systems, patch breaches, and launch additional fighters. Their sacrifices had bought the fleet a chance, and now every human fighter knew the weight of that gift. Each movement, each decision was a tribute to those who had risked everything and would not be forgotten. Jace glanced at Mara as they dove through enemy fire together. Exhaustion and adrenaline mingled on their faces, but a spark of triumph burned in their eyes. They were not alone. Every human fighter, every crew member on every carrier, shared the same unspoken truth. They could survive. They could fight. They could win, and win they did. One by one, the savage aces began to retreat, confusion and fear spreading among them. Their confidence, once absolute, was shattered by human courage, human creativity, and the unbreakable bond between pilots and crews. Humanity had found its roar, and it echoed across the void of space like a thunderstorm no enemy could ignore. Lyra allowed herself a brief smile as she watched the enemy retreat. The fleet was battered but alive. The carriers were intact. Pilots cheered over the comms, voices shaky but jubilant. Every victory, no matter how small, had been earned through courage, sacrifice, and unwavering will. Humanity had turned the tide. Corvin's voice rang over the bridge once more, proud and firm. Today the galaxy saw what humans are made of. Iron-willed, fearless, and relentless. Let every admiral tremble at our name. Jace, watching the streaking stars as the enemy pulled back, whispered to himself, exhaustion and pride mixing. We did it. We survived. We're not just alive, we're unstoppable. The human fleet regrouped, battered but undefeated. Carriers hummed with energy. Fighters prepared for the next encounter. And every human knew one truth. Against all odds, against impossible enemies they had fought, they had endured, and they had emerged stronger. Humanity had survived the storm, and the galaxy would never forget it. Commander Lyra's gaze lingered on the stars, calm and determined. The Savage Aces had learned something vital. Humans could be counted out no longer. Against impossible odds, humanity had proven one undeniable truth. Their courage, heart, and iron will were unmatched. And in the silence between battles, a quiet roar echoed through the fleet, carried not by engines or weapons, but by the hearts of every human who had faced death and refused to bow. Humanity had fought, humanity had endured, and humanity had won this moment. The battlefield was quiet now, but the silence was heavy. Smoke and debris floated across the void, remnants of the savage waves that had torn through human space. The human fleet hovered like a battered yet defiant monument to courage. Carriers humming with power, fighters circling overhead, engines still warm with the heat of battle. Commander Lyra stood on the bridge of the SSV Defiance, her hands gripping the rail, eyes fixed on the stars. The Savage Aces were gone, retreating into the shadows of the galaxy, but the memory of their fire still lingered, a reminder of how close humanity had come to devastation. Jace's fighter drifted among the wreckage of alien jets, engines cooling, body tense, but alive. His fingers shook slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion and disbelief. He had survived. He had fought, and he had witnessed humanity rise against impossible odds. Around him, pilots cheered over the comms, voices raw with emotion, laughter and tears mingling in a chorus of relief and triumph. They had endured. They had won. They had survived where no one had expected them to. Mara landed her fighter on the Defiance, battered but functional. She unstrapped herself and ran to the bridge where Lyra and Corvin waited. The three exchanged looks of quiet pride and exhaustion, the kind that only those who had faced death and survived could understand. Words were unnecessary. The battle had spoken for them. Humanity had not just survived, they had prevailed against predators that thought them weak and foolish. Admiral Corvin's voice broke the silence, steady and full of awe. "The galaxy has underestimated us for too long," he said. "Today we have shown them what humanity is truly capable of. Iron-willed, fearless, and relentless. Let this moment echo across every star system. Humans do not bow. Humans do not surrender. Humans endure." The carriers began to regroup and repair, crews working tirelessly despite fatigue. Every pilot who had survived walked among the ships, tending to wounded comrades, helping repair fighters, checking systems, and readying for what might come next. Each act, no matter how small, carried weight. Every hand extended, every repair completed, every life saved was part of the legacy humanity had begun to forge in the stars. Jace found himself staring at the distant horizon of stars, his mind replaying moments of courage and sacrifice. The valor had held long enough for the fleet to turn the tide. Pilots had risked everything, shielded one another, fought through pain and fear, and refused to give in. Humanity had endured not because they were the fastest or the strongest, but because they had heart. Because they had courage that could not be measured in engines or weapons. Mara joined him silently, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We did it," she whispered, voice trembling. "We survived, and they'll remember us." Jace nodded, swallowing back emotion. "Not just us," he replied. "All of us. Everyone who risked everything. Everyone who refused to bow. Humanity will never be the same after this." Lyra watched the two young pilots and felt a swell of pride. Humanity had been counted out, doubted, even mocked by other civilizations across the galaxy. But they had proven that courage, willpower, and heart were stronger than numbers, faster engines, or even alien precision. They had become legends in their own right, carrying with them the stories of sacrifice, ingenuity, and unbroken spirit. The Savage Aces had fled, their confidence shattered, their arrogance broken by beings they could not predict. They had faced humans before, yes, but never like this. Humans who fought with ingenuity, who protected one another, who turned fear into strategy and desperation into victory. And somewhere in the distant corners of the galaxy, other races whispered, their voices trembling. These humans, they fight like nothing else. They endure. They survive. They are unstoppable. Lyra allowed herself a quiet smile. Humanity had earned more than victory. They had earned respect, not through conquest, but through courage. Every human who had flown a fighter, manned a carrier, or risked themselves for another had become part of a story that would be told across generations. The galaxy would remember their defiance, their heart, their iron will. Jace, looking at the fleet, felt a quiet certainty in his chest. "We'll keep fighting," he said softly. "Not for glory, not for power, but for each other, for home, for humanity." Mara nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "We've already won something greater than survival," she said. "We've proven what it means to be human, and nothing can take that away." Corvin spoke over the comms, voice calm but resolute. "Record this day. Let every system know the truth. Humanity endures, humanity fights, and humanity will never be conquered. Today the galaxy has learned a lesson it will never forget." As the fleet began to move forward, repaired and renewed, Commander Lyra looked out at the endless expanse of stars. Humanity had survived impossible odds, faced predators that should have destroyed them, and emerged victorious. Not because of weapons or numbers, but because of heart. Humanity had become something more than a species of flesh and metal. They had become a force, feared and respected, unyielding and unstoppable. In the quiet of space, Jace whispered again, almost to himself, almost as a promise. "We fight, we endure, we survive. We are human, and we will never ever be broken." The stars stretched endlessly, cold and vast, but humanity's flame burned brighter than ever. Against impossible odds, against relentless enemies, against the dark expanse of space itself, humans had endured. They had fought. They had won, and the galaxy would remember.